Welcome to She Said Homestead, the podcast that explores homesteading from a range of perspectives. We're Sage and Mickayla, two homesteaders, each with unique experiences, properties, and future goals for our homesteads. We're discussing various homesteading topics, sharing our personal experiences as women working full-time who are managing homesteads as well, and shining a light on the stories of other inspiring homesteaders.
Before we dive in, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoy our podcast, please consider leaving a review. It really helps us grow and share these homesteading stories with even more people. Hey there guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Mickayla from Calico Cow Acres.
And I'm Sage from Terra Nova Acres, and we both have homesteads in Western North Carolina.
Today we have our friend Lindsay on here, and she is a homesteader slash farmer slash dressmaker. She does all the things, and we're excited to let you guys get to know her today. But before we get into that, why don't you tell us what you did this week, Lindsay?
This week, I went to the farmer's market in Knoxville on Saturday, and we sold out of all of our duck eggs, all of our dried flowers, and almost all of our soap made with our dried flowers. So ever since then, I've been kind of just like horizontal, laying down, enjoying the nice cool weather. I have the stove going with a little bit of tea, and it's just so nice. So really, I haven't been doing a whole lot because I sold off everything at the farmer's market. So yeah.
Have you guys gotten your first frost yet up there?
No, not yet. We were supposed to get it actually tonight, but I don't think that it's going to be here for actually a couple more days, thankfully.
Mine's supposed to be here tomorrow, so I'm doing all of the last garden things tomorrow before that happens, hopefully.
Do you have a fall garden started, though? Because I feel like it's good for kale and broccoli and stuff like that.
It's started in pots, and I left it in the basement when the hurricane came and the power was out for 5 days, and I forgot about it. So it's not amazing, but I might still get
priorities.
Them
That's fine.
Yeah,
you tried, so that's all that really matters. I have seedlings in the greenhouse right now that I haven't checked on in a couple of days, and I literally just now remembered. So I'm like, great, they're probably dead.
I'm kind of honestly looking forward to just setting up the nets in the garden and letting the chickens in there at this point. I'm ready for the slow season.
Yeah, let's make some soup. Let's enjoy the chickens in the yard, and let's just relax.
Yeah, I have been honestly not feeling it this week. I've been laying horizontal also on the couch here, just relaxing and trying to rest because I've had like a lot of migraines in the past week, and I've just not been feeling great. I feel like I got sick, and I don't know. My body's telling me that I need to slow down a little bit. So I've not really been doing any projects, but I have gotten out to the garden a few times, and it's been nice and cool outside. So it's actually been enjoyable, and I've been saving seeds from flowers for next year because I really want to be able to like give seeds to people over the winter, just like gifting them to a bunch of random people. I had people stop by who got eggs earlier, and they gave me watermelons, and they're like, we're giving you these because we have so many, and then you can save seeds from them and grow them next year. And I was like, I have some for you too, like I'll give them to you next time you come. So I've really been in the spirit of wanting to save and exchange seeds with people. So I've been saving pepper seeds, flower seeds, harvesting all the last of the peppers. This weekend, we spent all of Saturday driving 2 hours west into the mountains to go get all of our straw for our animal bedding for the year. And then I got a bunch extra so I could use it in the garden. And then we drove home, unloaded that, drove 2 hours east to go get a wood stove. So we'll actually be warm this winter, which I'm really excited about that. That just thinking about that gets me even more into the cozy mood. And I'm like, yes, I'm ready for soups. I got soup started earlier today. We're having soup for dinner this week. Like, I'm ready for the cozy vibes. Just resting and saving more seeds if I can get out there before the frost gets everything. But Sage, what did you do this week?
This week, I got power back. That was a big deal. Ooh. It was like 10 hours short of 2 full weeks with no power.
So that was a big deal.
Wow.
Trying to return to a version of normal, right? Getting internet figured out, because even though I have power back, my internet provider has not fixed their infrastructure. So I'm on a Starlink and figuring all that out, and it is what I would have expected from, maybe an out of touch billionaire. It's like, I live in Appalachia and they want you to set the satellite up so that there's no tree or building interference within, a certain part of the sky, and you have to face it north. And I'm like, okay, I'm on a mountain. There is mountain to the north of me that I cannot move, and I would have to chop down half of the trees on my property for, to give this satellite the view that it wants. So we're trying it out. We're seeing. It's going okay so far, but I did get my first patchy frost last night, and then I think tonight is going to be the big, like, really killing, it's done frost. So last night I was out in the garden getting, every bit of fruit that was left on anything, because it's just going to freeze. So I have, my kitchen is just a mess of celery and underripe peppers and tomatoes and whatever other random stuff I pulled. But then I also had the panic thought of, oh no, I meant to save seeds this year, and I have 24 hours to do that. So I grabbed some seeds from what I cared about the most, and that'll be better than what I did last year. But I think that's enough about us and our weeks. Let's talk a little bit about Lindsay. So tell us a bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Lindsay, and I own 2 businesses. And prior to that, I kind of set out on this journey of turning all of my hobbies into thriving businesses, or at least trying to turn them into thriving businesses. And I'm still in the process of doing that for my farm. But right now, mostly where I get most of my money is dressmaking. I do a little dressmaking business online, and then I also do like small scale regenerative farming with flowers and ducks for meat and eggs.
Okay, so getting into our rapid fire questions here.
These are the ones I'm
We always
scared
have to
about
ask
the most.
every single person, what is your favorite color?
It's light yellow.
Ooh,
that's a new one.
Yeah, usually we get green.
I like yellow. That was my second one. I'm like, sage or olive is such a beautiful color.
Light yellow. I like that. It's different.
How about your favorite, like, comfort food meal?
Oh, gosh. Anything that's creamy, lemony, and garlicky. Like a noodle, like just swimming in like butter and creamy sauce with like capers or something. That's like my favorite.
What is a skill that you've always wanted to learn but you haven't yet?
Oil painting. I want to learn how to oil paint so bad. Like just like have a whole like season of life where I watch Bob Ross and I just like oil paint. That would be amazing.
That sounds so relaxing.
Yeah.
Which season of the year do you enjoy the most?
I think spring, because starting seeds is like my all-time favorite thing, like of all time. Like even if the seedlings all die by a certain point, just the fact that I was able to start them and watch them like grow a little bit, I'm like, this is amazing. I have like 500 photos of literally just the same seedling on my phone. But like plants, full grown plants, I have like 5 photos.
We've had this debate like multiple times where Sage likes, she doesn't like starting the seeds, but she likes taking care of the seedlings after. And I like starting the seeds, but I don't like taking care of the seedlings after.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to be one or the other. You can't enjoy both parts of that.
Yeah.
I've never met somebody who does. What are 3 things that make you the most happy?
Definitely the first one is my husband. He is like my all-time best friend in like the whole world. He supports me with like literally everything. Like I'll go to him and I'll be like, honey, I want to quit my job and just like start sewing, or I want to start a flower farm. And he's just like, all right, pull up the YouTube channel. Like, let's figure out how to do this. Like, let's figure out how to make this work. And he'll like build me stuff like this studio. And it's just like so awesome. 2, my animals. I love my animals so much. I could just like walk outside with a cup of coffee, put a chair up, and just like watch them all day. It's just so nice. And then 3, I don't know, I kind of like my peace and quiet. Like moving out to the country after being in the suburbs most of my life is pretty amazing. I like the fact that I don't have a regular 9 to 5, so I'm not like constantly talking to people all day. I get to really space out my interactions with people, and I feel like that overall makes me a happier person.
Yeah, I think we both work from home for that same reason.
Yes.
How about icks? Do you have any homesteading or farming things that just give you the ick?
My animals. Okay. Okay, so my animals are absolutely disgusting. I don't know. Like, I will sit down. It's also my joy. I sit down and I watch them. But if I watch them for too long, I'm like, I need to get back to talking to somebody, because what the heck was that? If I keep my drakes away from their ladies for too long, the ladies will become very interested in each other. Very, very interested. Goose on top of duck on top of goose. I mean, I'm like, what the heck? Is that okay? Are they okay? They're all having the time of their lives. I don't stop it. My mom came over to visit one time and she's looking out the window. She's like, what is going on? I'm like, this is what they like. Just let them. You give them a pool, they're going to do that. I don't. So the ick is definitely the ducks and the pigs. They'll do the same thing. Like, they're brothers and their mother will come up on the other side of the fence. I'm like, stop. That's your brother and your mom is watching. So definitely the animals.
The thing about the water with the ducks, my ducks have like, if they come across any sort of puddle of any kind, they start doing, they bob their heads up and down. We call them up downs. Yeah. And that's like their mating ritual.
Yeah, it is. It's so funny.
That was such a good answer. It was a really good follow-up to saying that they're your favorite, but they're also your ick. The last one I have is, what is your favorite warm beverage?
Warm beverage, probably a hot matcha latte. That sounds so good. Yeah, I was wanting to make some tea before we got in here. It's just like the perfect night for it.
And then I was like, I'm going to be up until 2. So, Lindsay, where are you located?
We are in Tennessee. We're like exactly between Knoxville and Nashville. So we're like, I think as far east as Middle Tennessee goes.
Okay, so this one's a little bit of a loaded question because of your current homestead farm situation, but you feel free to describe whatever one you prefer. Can you describe your homestead setup for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So our homestead setup is pretty simple right now. We are living in an RV on my in-laws' property, and we call it kind of like a family compound because my in-laws are living on it, my brother-in-law is living on it, my other brother-in-law is living on it, and thankfully it's 7 acres, so it's enough for everybody comfortably. And my in-laws have given us permission to start like dabbling in homesteading on this property so that we can have a good idea of what we want our future property to look like and like the practices that we want to do and the way we want to lay it out. So we wanted like a little bit of like practice under our belts before we start breaking ground. So right now we have our RV. And then probably about 50 feet away, we have my studio. This is where I run my dressmaking business. It's also where I prepare all of my cut flowers and dry all of my flowers and make soap. So right now, I have a very cute section here that my husband cleaned for you guys, a nice presentation. And then over here is, it's pretty bad. This is definitely a multifunctional space. Behind this studio, we have a 8 by 16 foot duck and goose coop. You will probably hear them quack once or twice during this because they're not used to the lights shining into their coop right now. But we have their coop right there. And then directly behind the studio, we have about a 1/4 acre of a field with rows of flowers planted. Well, right now it's mostly like weeds, but it was really gorgeous a couple weeks ago. And then behind that field, we have the duck pasture. So from the duck coop, we have like a long stretch, almost like a tunnel, where they pass the flower field and they go into their pasture. And it's really easy for us to open their pasture every now and again so that they can be rotated into the flower pasture or the flower field. But for the most part, they stay in their duck pasture, and they have about an acre for themselves, and they need more. They need more. We're so excited to be moving on to our property soon, because if you have ducks in any sort of large quantity, you know that you have to rotate them and you need to give them lots of space, or else it's just going to be mud everywhere. That's like their ideal life. Like if my duck was on this podcast right now and you asked them their ideal life, they'd be like mud, poop everywhere. Like it's not unusual to look outside and see a white duck completely brown, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with you? But our homesteading setup is super simple right now, just because what we're working on is just kind of deciding what we want our future property to look like. So we've kind of just like dabbled in a little bit of everything here and just organized it kind of however way we thought would be good. But I'll probably talk a little bit more on what we will do instead, because there's a lot of things that we did wrong.
You don't have to like go into detail, because I know you're still trying to figure out what it's going to look like and what you guys want to do. But I know you own another property that's like your property, and you're planning to build a house there. How much land, and like what is there, like ponds there? What's up with that?
It is absolutely stunning. It's on top of a mountain, but it's still pretty close to convenience store. So it's about 30 minutes from like your Publix and your Kroger and stuff like that. And it has like internet and stuff like that. So it's like the perfect combination of out there, but like you're by conveniences. It's 16 acres and it does have a really beautiful pond, but the pond is not compacted. So we're going to need to go in this winter, compact it, maybe like roll it, and then we're going to lay some clay down so that it holds water a little bit better throughout the year. And we are so excited to finally be done with like the portable water stations for the ducks, because it just causes a lot of mud and it is so messy keeping up with all of the duck waters. So that was definitely a big priority for us. On the property, so it's shaped like a triangle. On the property, we have 2 road fronts. So one road front is like leads up to our future house site, and then the other road front, we're going to create like a separate drive for people coming to the farm, because I want to create like a walkable garden farm experience for people eventually. So I want it to be like really separate. Like I don't want people driving up to my house one day, and I want people to like drive up to like a barn and like do all of that one day. So it's like perfectly laid out, and I just can't wait to get started. It's been 2 years now, and we're like finally starting to like get utilities on the property and move forward.
So is farming and or gardening, keeping animals, all of those things, is that something that you grew up with, or is that something that you found later in life?
It's definitely something that I found later in life. My great-grandparents were farmers in Michigan, and they farmed like fruits and berries and like apricots and stuff like that. but that was not passed down to me. But my grandma, she loved gardening. So we would always go to the gardening center and buy flowers, and she would teach me how to plant them in the ground and arrange them. And that has definitely stuck with me because that's one of my favorite things about this farming, homesteading adventure so far.
This question is kind of similar to the other one, but can you tell us like the backstory on why and how you decided to get into homesteading?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got into this lifestyle, or I started thinking about this lifestyle in 2020. My dad suddenly passed in January of that year. And then I just like fell into the worst depression of my life. I didn't go to work. I didn't really talk to anybody. And as my husband was like, really trying to like get me going through all of this, like he ended up taking over all of the house chores. He took over all the bills. He took over like literally everything and just let me be a zombie for months. And the more I was talking with him, the more I'm like, I don't have a system in life that I can fall back on to make me feel fulfilled and happy when disaster strikes. Like, we should be creating a life that safeguards us so that when disaster strikes, we can fall back and we can stand firm and know that life will get better. And so I started thinking to myself, well, I always thought that having a good paying job with lots of benefits and it was in the area that I went to school for, that is what I could fall back on. And I just didn't feel like I could fall back on it. I just felt like emotionally very drained. So I started sewing. I have sewed almost my entire life and I love it. So I started a little Etsy shop, and then within 5 months I replaced a full-time job with it. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever because I'm literally spending like 3-4 hours a day sewing, and now I don't have to go back to work. Like, that's so cool. So then after that, I started my own website and I moved up from selling scrunchies to selling dresses and skirts and shirts and stuff like that. And then at the same time, simultaneously that I started my Etsy shop, I started a little garden in the backyard. Now, this was the most like minimal garden ever. I went to Home Depot and like spent like $500 on like 4 plant starts, and I'm like, I'm a gardener, like this is amazing. Like, I really thought that I was like onto something. I'm like, this is so cool. Nobody's gardening right now. Like, fast forward, I like started following a bunch of people online, and I'm like, holy cow, like there's so many people who are also into gardening and they're like starting seeds. Like, what the heck is that? Like, getting cell trays, like what in the world? Soil blocking? Like, that's crazy. So like fast forward, I like just like started learning all of these things from so many people online. And I told Steve one day, like, I want to move to the country. Like, I want to do this, like, for real, because this, like, singular tomato that I just grew tastes better than all the tomatoes I've ever purchased in the store combined. Like, surely there's more of those, like, tomatoes in this future, like, dream, like, figuratively. And so he said, yeah, sure, let's sell our house. So we sold our house. We bought the RV. We bought a truck to pull the RV, came down here, and we just like, it was like one thing after the other. And my husband is super handy, so he already knows how to like build stuff. So I know that the future house one day is going to be great. And he's like, all right, I got the house if you got the farm plans. And I'm like, all right, we're going to make this work. And that's like how it happened. Really, I just wanted a lifestyle that I can fall back on when disaster strikes. And I know that like I'm creating a life for me, not necessarily what other people want or what will fulfill other people, but it'll make me feel really good and confident knowing that, I gave it my all to do what I wanted.
So once you decided that, homesteading, taking on all this extra stuff that wasn't previously in your life, once you decided that's what you wanted, how did you go about learning all of those skills? Because it's not like you can just pick that up overnight, never having, lived that before.
Honestly, YouTube. YouTube was single-handedly the most informative tool that I use. I am a firm believer that like you can learn just about anything on YouTube, and if you have the right questions. So you need to know, like, you have to have enough base knowledge, like from just reading online about, like, let's say seed starting, for example. You need to know that you need soil, you need some sort of medium to put it in. You need to put some sort of like vermiculite on it so that you have like good base knowledge. But YouTube is really great. Like, you can type a really specific question into YouTube, like, how do I grow sugar snap peas? Or like, how do I train sugar snap peas to trellis XYZ? And you're gonna find a video, albeit it might not always be like the best video, but you're gonna find a video, and then like look through the comment section. You're gonna find somebody who failed 10 years ago, and you're gonna learn from that person right there. That is like the number one thing that I used, and also just like doing it. I don't think any amount of learning will like compete with actually just doing it, because then it just like really gets put to memory.
You already briefly mentioned this, but can you tell us about like the produce or other products that you sell at markets or you're sewing? Just what are the products that you market and sell to people?
Yeah, so the farm is definitely very separate from the sewing business. I haven't found a good way to like mesh both of them. So I'll talk about them separately. So the sewing business, I basically open up my website every Saturday at noon for custom orders. Recently, I've stopped doing custom orders for most customers. I'm doing it for just like repeat customers, just because they keep me so busy. I could spend like 8 hours plus a day just sewing. And as much as I love that, I need a little bit of a balance in my life. So I open up my website every Saturday at noon for repeat customers now. And then throughout the week, if I make something extra, like make an extra apron, I'll take a photo of it and I'll post it on my website as like a ready-made item, so people can easily just browse whenever they want and they don't have to wait a couple of weeks for me to make their item. That has been the most difficult job that I've had thus far, because it requires so much communication between people, and I'm actually not good at communication when it comes to like DMs and stuff like that, especially with this like requests folder on Instagram. I will literally open my requests folder and it'll be full of DMs from like 10 weeks ago, 14 weeks ago. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is too much. And, when somebody orders a custom dress, they'll have lots of questions, because this is obviously a very expensive item. It takes a long time to make. So there's just like a lot of back and forth that we need to do in order to get the final product. So I'm moving away from selling ready-made things and custom things, and I'm moving more towards selling sewing patterns and doing like tutorials online, because I think it's so cool being able to see some fabric, have a sewing pattern in front of you, and like learn how to turn that piece of fabric into whatever you want, and like how to manipulate your sewing pattern to create something more like for you instead of exactly what the sewing pattern is. So that's what I am currently working on, and I had to learn like a whole new software technology thing to be able to do that and like digitize my sewing patterns, and that's been trying me. I'm not a technological person at all, so that's been really difficult.
I'm excited for your patterns.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I'm excited.
I think that they're going to be so great. They're super easy. I mean, if I can do them, I mean, yes, I've been doing it like for a long time, but like if I can do them, I'm a really impatient sewer. And I like to sew things like really fast or really easy, nothing like super difficult. So I think that they'll be really great for people who are, you know, not wanting to be super technical, but still want a really nice, you know, outfit. That's a good option. But the farm side of my business, just like gives me life. I am obsessed with it. Last year, when we set out to do all of this, we initially wanted to be veggie farmers, just your general veggie farmer, like maybe some fruits, invest in some fruit trees and stuff like that, tomatoes, peppers. But we found that one, the ducks and geese absolutely loved eating them. Oh my gosh, like we kept them fed last year with our market garden, which was great. They gave us great eggs. We didn't have a whole lot of tomatoes without like beak marks in them. And second, we felt like everybody in the farmers market already had all of that stuff, and they were really well established already. So we're like, like let's brainstorm. So while I was sitting out watching the ducks do their thing one day, I noticed that none of them were going after the flowers. And I'm like, I've always been one of those people that's like, why would you grow a ton of flowers when you can grow a ton of veggies and feed people? And the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, well, I can't really grow veggies if my animals are going to eat it all. And the animals were always going to be like my main thing. Like I absolutely love raising them. Nobody around here does duck eggs or duck meat. So it's like we cannot sell enough duck eggs. Like we could literally quadruple our flock tomorrow and still run out of duck eggs every week. It's pretty crazy. So we started growing flowers, and it ended up being the greatest thing ever. I absolutely love it. They are gorgeous and they make me happy, and you can't eat them, but they're just beautiful. And the ducks and geese complement them so well. They wind their way in and out of the rows. They take care of the bugs. They take care of all of the fertilizing needs. And even though there's a lot of flower farmers that we are not really like competing with, there's definitely enough of a market in Knoxville for all of the flower farmers at the market, but like it's not as much as the veggie people. So I really feel like we've tapped into a really good market, and that has been honestly my favorite part because I just love going out there in the morning. I love watching the ducks outside. I love, snipping and deadheading flowers. I love arranging the flowers. It's just so fun. And I was not expecting that at all. I really thought it was just going to be this like flowers. But now I'm like obsessed.
That is a lot to keep up with. That's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
So how much extra help do you have on the farm, and how much is just you?
Well, the majority is me, and I prefer it that way, honestly. I would rather manage myself because my schedule is like, well, the thing is I just don't like have a schedule. I love the flexibility of like, maybe like today I want to go out and fertilize, or maybe today I just want to observe the ducks, or maybe today I want to get out and weed, or maybe I want to start seeds. If anything, my husband will help with weeding, and he'll help me with like the major stuff like putting down weed block. This year we tried using like your landscape fabric weed block, and I'm definitely not doing that again next year. We're going to like our pre-flower market garden style, which is like a no-till lasagna bed, and that worked so well for us. He will help me with most of the things like that, and I have to give him like a list because I like things done a certain way, and I like to know what's going on the farm. But he will typically take care of all of the cooking and stuff in the summertime so that I can be outside working in the garden and making things look nice and washing eggs and like packaging eggs. When we're out of town, we'll hire my brother-in-law and he will take care of, the ducks and our dogs and our piggies and stuff like that. But I don't think I ever want to get so big that I have to have an employee because I feel like I'd make a really bad boss.
Just to clarify for anybody listening, does Steve have a full-time job as well?
Yes. So Steve does have a full-time job and thankfully it's remote. So like any time of the day I can just drop in and be like, hey, do you have 5 minutes to help me like haul this duck food up the hill? Because why do it if you don't have to? So it's really nice that he's so close by. Eventually he would love to like do something on his own, like have his own business, but right now his job is so comfortable and it really allows us to like not feel like we need to bring in enough money to support both of us with the sewing business and the farm. It still feels very much like a hobby, even though it's profitable. And I think it's just because we don't have that stress. And I really love that. And I feel like that's the key to me, like getting out there and doing it every day. It's like, I just don't want to be like told I have to. You know what I mean?
You sound like Sage.
Yeah. I relate to that a lot.
Yeah.
You said that you're not interested in growing to like a massive scale where you'd have to hire anybody, but do you see this being something that you want to kind of pursue long term?
Yeah, absolutely. I foresee in the future us starting like a small nursery on our property. So one of the things that sold best for us this year was our garden roses. As soon as I had roses, and I'm not talking about like the roses that you would typically associate with roses, like your red roses that are like super small. I'm talking about like the gorgeous, like big and ruffled roses, the ones that almost like look like a peony. They're so big and beautiful. Once we had those in our bouquets, people just went crazy for them. We couldn't sell enough rose bouquets, like mixed bouquets with roses in them. And I found that you really don't have to market a bouquet with roses. You do not have to justify a higher price with a bouquet with roses because people already associate them with a higher price tag and they're like willing to pay for it because they know it's going to last a super long time in the vase. It's going to be super fragrant and it just looks like really upscale and gorgeous. So I've been researching what roses I can propagate on my own without a license, what roses I can market and what names they can go by, so that I can start a little nursery on my property for roses. So we're going to build a barn right at that like farm entrance. We're going to call it the farm entrance on the property instead of like our home entrance. So on the farm entrance side, I want to build a barn that will house all the animals and stuff. And then right in front of the barn is where we will have our potted roses. And then throughout that side of the property, I would like to create like a garden style farm. So not your traditional like rose that we did this year. I'd rather focus more on like perennials and then have some small areas for annuals just because they're like really gorgeous and they look great in bouquets and they're super cheap. But I want it to be a place where people can like walk through and like really see the roses in action. I just never like really realized how much people want roses, and I started doing some more research, kind of like the same research I did when I was figuring out if we should do ducks or chickens, and nobody in the area was doing ducks. And you really can determine your price tag when you're the only one doing it. So we decided that we're going to go all in with the roses, and we've invested really I've invested really heavily into the roses, and we have so many rose roots coming next March that we are going to be planting on our property, and it's going to be so exciting. So I want it to be like people can come by once a week. We have like a bare root sale, or I can ship online. People go crazy for roses online. Like, it's like a big thing. I never realized how like competitive it is to buy certain roses online. Like, they'll post it on their website. These like rose root companies, they'll post it on their website, and like a million people flock to it, and it's like sold out within hours. And I'm like, that's great. That's a great business. Like, we should do that. So right now I'm in the process of researching everything that has to do with having a nursery, a small scale nursery, and rose propagation, because there's a lot of like weird laws and stuff on rose propagation. But yeah, we're trying to figure that out. But I'd like to keep it just me and my husband as employees, because like I said, I feel like I'd make a really bad boss just because I'm kind of all over the place. One minute I'd like to weed, and then maybe like 10 minutes in, I'm like, I'm not feeling this. Like, I got to go do something else. Like, I just don't want to be tied to a schedule. So I think having it just be my husband and I would be the perfect combination.
As far as general gardening, cultivation, management philosophies go, where do you fall on the spectrum of no dig, organic, no till, fertilizing mechanisms, those sorts of things? Are there things that you specifically stay away from, or are there things that you really enjoy implementing?
So I am like really open to anything. So our first year growing veggies in the market garden, we did a lasagna no-till kind of thing. We just used a broad fork with the existing land that was there. We just broad forked. We put down some cardboard. We put down some compost, and then we put a little bit of mulch on top. And we loved that. We didn't have a ton of weeds that year. We had like weeds flying through the air and germinated on top of things, but I really didn't spend a whole lot of time on weeding. This last season with the flowers, we did till, and we used landscape fabric with holes burned in them for each flower. And the reason why we did that was because all of the YouTube videos that I saw, that's the only option that I saw online come up again and again and again. And I'm like, well, maybe flowers just need like extra fluffy soil or like extra tillage or something. And it ended up backfiring on us so bad. I will never do that again. So on our property, we will probably till initially just to break up the soil. And then after that, I'm going to work in some amendments. And then we're going to do something called occultation. We have giant silage tarps that we're going to put down. And basically, you put those down for a couple of months, and that is going to hopefully kill a lot of noxious weeds. We started trialing that here, and that has worked out really well for us. We have some really noxious weeds like vines, lots of like thistles that are just so awful when you are trying to weed really quickly. And even with gloves on, you get like a thistle. I'm done weeding for the day after that. It's like, nope, husband, you can take care of this, because I just can't. I'm gonna cry, So I want to remove all of those as much as possible. So we're gonna do something called occultation, and that will hopefully kill a lot of the noxious weeds. Once that is on there for a couple months, we're going to take that off, and then we're going to start cover cropping on areas where we are going to be planting into. I think we're doing a peas and oats cover crop, and I've just heard that that's the easiest one to do. It's something that you can terminate really easily, and I'm going for easy this upcoming year. Easy and low maintenance. So we're going to cover crop the areas that we are going to grow into. The other areas like walkways, we're going to overseed with some grass, some like native grasses, mostly because we're going to have a lot of growing space, and I really want mulch, like a heavy mulch compost in the growing spaces. So if I do compost or if I just do mulch everywhere, it's like we're going to need a forest. So we're just going to go with grass and maybe see how that goes. Hopefully it doesn't creep. I really haven't gotten into researching what native grasses we're going to use yet. But overall, we try to stay organic. Definitely with the veggies, anything that we consume, anything that the ducks can get into is totally organic. The roses, however, I'm going to try doing this organic. This is going to be our first full year really trying to grow the roses for cut flower production and possibly selling to a couple of wholesale like florists. And I'm going to try and keep it organic as much as possible. I feel like if there's an outbreak of something really, really serious, like something that could potentially kill the rose, I would be interested in spraying something. But like, I just don't feel really good about that right now. I found a website that you can order. It's like a subscription that you can order beneficial insects, and they get delivered like every month. And so like all of these insects are like good for roses, and they're like, you know, you just type in your square footage and they'll give you that amount of bugs or eggs. So I'm interested in doing stuff like that, and maybe like spending a little bit more money on the beneficial insects and maybe plants that will benefit the roses like next to it so that we don't get a ton of pest issue. But I'm not really sure how that's going to work yet. But I'm just hoping for the best. But we'd like to stay mostly organic because, like, why not? You know?
You've been talking a lot about the roses, and I think you said that's kind of what you guys are leaning into as like one of your main focuses. Is that your favorite thing to grow though, or do you have something else like another flower or veggie or fruit or whatever that's like your favorite thing to grow?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I have to show you. I don't know if you're familiar with flowers, but let me show you. It's called a cupcake cosmos, and it's so pretty. Literally every customer at the farmer's market came up and they're like, what is this flower? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's literally the easiest flower that I've grown this entire year, and everybody is obsessed with it. Let me show you. It's so gorgeous. When you look at a bouquet and you see like those bouncy flowers that people love, I don't know if you can see it.
Do they call it a cupcake Cosmo because it looks kind of like the paper liner that goes into the baking tins? That's what it always reminds me of, but I've honestly never thought of that association.
Neither have I. And when you started saying that, I'm like, yes. That one was so easy to grow. But I feel like that would be my favorite flower to grow, or at least like easiest flower to grow. But I think my favorite is the duck eggs. There's just like something so personal about giving somebody eggs from my own duck and them coming back and saying like, yeah, I cooked a meal with it and it was so delicious. And I'm just like, whoa, like, so for some reason it like doesn't cross my mind that like anything happens to the items that people buy after they like leave my farmer's market booth. It's just like when people come back and they're like, yeah, we want more, they were so delicious. And I'm just like, huh, like that is so wild. Like you're actually eating them. Like, of course they are, but like it's just so like crazy to hear that people are enjoying them. And I think that's probably one of my favorite things, is because people don't usually see duck eggs on the shelves anywhere, and they're really interested in trying them. And I tell them like, I think you're gonna love them, like just might as well try them once. And then they always come back and they want more, and it's pretty cool.
So what is the most profitable thing that you sell?
Probably cut flowers. I'm actually really blown away by how profitable cut flowers are. I think that's why it's very trendy right now on social media to start a cut flower garden, because you really do not need a whole lot of space, like at all. You could literally grow in a backyard, like a regular backyard. and have a row of zinnias, cosmos, and maybe some like greenery, and have a thriving like market stand. We probably spend in seeds about $1,500 every fall for the next season's market. And like that's it. And that will carry you through the entire summer. And I mean, you can get that back in one farmer's market just selling flowers. So I think of all the things that I've ever sold, flowers are the biggest thing, because you don't have to sell to at a farmer's market like direct to consumer if you don't want to. You already have local florists who are buying flowers from wholesalers. They're shipping them in from overseas, which they don't really always arrive super fresh. They're really expensive. And then there's a lot of flowers that you can't buy from wholesalers because they just don't ship very well. So local flower farmers can sell directly to a florist, and boom, you don't even have to go to a farmer's market. You don't have to be on social media if you don't want to. You don't have to market anything. You just have to email your local florist and they'll take your flowers. So that has been the biggest shock to me, because I was like pro veggie. I'm like veggie gardener. That's what I want to do. And then like the first year selling flowers, I'm like, all right, let's invest in some roses, because we're doing this because it really is profitable. And we have a ton of flower farmers at our market. So I know that if you're in an area with even just a couple flower farmers by you, you'd probably do really, really well.
Something that I've always noticed about your like business ventures, and I know you've got a few of them that you've tried and like usually they're successful, is
not
like,
always,
I admire it. I admire it because I always have things that I want to do, but I always try to do things like in the cheapest way I possibly can. And it's admirable that you are like really willing to invest in and like fully go for it, because like I notice the success in what you're doing because of that. And it's really cool to see.
Well, I appreciate that. I will say that it's not always a good thing to invest a lot. Like, let's say, for example, this beautiful mic here. Okay. This was a very expensive mic. And I'm like gung-ho. I'm like, we're going to start a YouTube channel. Okay. I'm going to be doing voiceovers and stuff like that. So I bought a beautiful mic. And when was the last time I posted a YouTube video? I mean, it's been a long time. So I feel like there's some things that's like really good to like just invest in. Then there's some that's like, maybe you should buy the lower cost mic and like see how it goes. Or maybe just like you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, you also like I think about the YouTube videos you've put out though, and they're absolutely beautiful too. Like I think that
I appreciate
you're
that.
just really good at making things. Like you're really good at making beautiful things.
Thank you.
And with that many things going on, I'm sure that you encounter challenges. So what has been your biggest challenge, or maybe a couple of your biggest challenges so far?
Honestly, myself. I feel like I have these really high expectations for myself. And when I try something new and I don't immediately love what I'm doing, or if I'm not immediately good at it, or immediately get the 10,000 subscribers that I'm going for, it is so easy for me to be like, all right, that's it. It wasn't meant for me. You know, I'll try something else. But it's like, you just can't live your life like that. You're not going to become instantly amazing at something or instantly love something. Sometimes you need to really try it a couple of times and figure out the ways that work best for you. So that has been the most difficult thing for me, is like, I need to check my expectations and like figure out what's a more realistic expectation for myself, and like realistic timelines for success. And am I actually doing the things that will lead to success? For example, am I consistently posting on YouTube? No. So why do I expect to have my YouTube channel just like take off? You know what I mean? So it's like I just need to be a little bit more realistic with myself and put in the work. If I want something to be super amazing and like a dream come true for me, I need to put in the work, and I need to be more patient with myself if I'm not like instantly good at something right away.
Do you ever do so well at something and then you realize you don't like it as much as you thought you would and you have to backtrack?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, sewing. I love sewing so much, and I love teaching people to sew, and I love making videos about sewing. But I haven't loved the business aspect of my sewing business a whole lot because it requires a ton of communication, and it's not like I post a product and it can sell. The majority of the things that I sell are custom items. So I'm changing pocket locations, I'm changing bodice lengths, I'm changing, all these things. And then if for any reason it doesn't fit, people can send it back to me and I can alter it and stuff like that. And I love creating something unique and helping people with their closets if they want like a unique, tailored to them closet. But it's all of the back and forth that really just adds to the mental load of the day. I will wake up and there will already be messages that I have to reply to, and I can spend at least an hour and a half every morning going through messages, and sometimes they're from customers, sometimes they're not. And it's just like a lot of mental work. Whereas like the farm, you just pop in headphones, you turn on a romantasy book on Audible, and I could spend the whole day weeding and taking gorgeous like videos. I think of all the things that I want to do is the videos. I love taking videos. I love pulling out the camera when I feel inspired, and I love looking back at them. It's just like, oh my gosh, I love that. That makes me feel so good. So the sewing part has definitely been something that I'm moving away from just because it requires a lot of work. Like one dress can take up to 5 hours to sew. So if somebody places an order for like 3 dresses, it's like, it's profitable, but now I have to sit and do the same thing for like 10 hours. That's a lot of sitting. That's a lot of doing one thing. I'm like do this 1 minute, do this another minute, do this another minute, have the option to do this another minute. You know what I mean? Like I need some like variability in my day, and it's just very like stagnant.
Yeah. I very much relate to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you feel that, does it ever make you think about quitting, even if it's just one aspect of what you do, right? Because you do so much.
Yeah. The only thing that I've ever considered quitting is social media. Oh my gosh. Every day I'm like, I can become one of those mysterious girls. Like I just grow a ton of flowers. I have a ton of ducks. I post like an epic YouTube video now and again, and just be like one of those people that shows up on social media like once a month. And the thing is, I'm so in my own bubble during the day that social media, I've made so many friends on social media that I like love going on it now and scrolling and seeing what's going on with everybody's lives. And that's like my socialization, and that's like so perfect for me. I'm not like a super like go out on the town kind of person, and I get my socialization from like texting my friends and stuff like that, DMing, just liking something. I just feel like that's fun. So if there's anything I've considered quitting, it's social media, but then it's like 2 seconds long, and then I come back and I'm like, man, I love social media. But it gets like a lot. It gets a lot when when people you don't know are constantly DMing you and about like the most random things. Like for my sewing business, they'll ask the most random things like, are you going to offer dresses with, can I mail you fabric and like do all this? And I'm like, I've already said no. And they've messaged me like a million more times asking me questions that I literally just answered. And I'm like, this is just like, I don't want to be a mean person and not message back. So I feel like obligated to message everybody back. But some people, like, they just don't realize, I think, how many messages people get on a daily basis. And it's like really mentally taxing to constantly get the same question from the same person. It's like, please let me sleep. You know?
I feel like there's a difference between being somebody who is like running a business and posting on social media and like relying on that as like a form of, or like a piece of your business, and like letting yourself decompress and mindlessly scroll and consume a little bit of social media at the end of the day. Because I feel the same exact way. I am like it will happen occasionally now where I'll feel the need that I've got so many messages, I need to like post something and be like, hey, I'm gonna try and get back to some of you now. But I just like, I'm so unapologetic about it at this point. Like, I just do not have time. I have so many messages. Sorry. If you really need to get a hold of me, you either should already have my phone number or you can email me and I might reply there.
Yeah.
Because there's less messages.
Yeah. Some people, like, they just really don't understand that. I mean, if I don't respond right away, people will get like really rude with me. And I'm just like I'm just trying, you know, like people just really don't understand at all the amount that we have to respond to.
Obviously, you've got a lot going on with the sewing and the farmers markets and just holding down the farm and social media, all of the things that you're doing. How do you balance your farm obligations, your sewing business, and your other life obligations and just like rest?
How do I rest? I don't know. I feel like my version of resting is reading books. I love reading books, like fantasy books, romantasy books, mysteries. So what I started this year was I got an Audible account through Amazon, and I listen to I like listen to 14 books a month now. It's crazy. But I literally just pop in my headphones and I listen to books while I sew, while I cook, while I clean, while I'm in the garden. And that has really helped me stay on track. I'm a very like I can be doing something that I really need to focus on, like sewing, but it's so hard for me to do the same thing continually. So by popping in an audiobook, I'm able to really focus because I'm listening to something while I'm doing something else, and that keeps me focused. And that is like the key to me getting anything done. That and my planner. I spend probably like the night before, I come up with a list of things that I'd like to accomplish the next day. I don't really like give myself the pressure to accomplish everything on my list if I don't, need to. But I put everything on my list the day before and I try to accomplish it the next day. I feel like it helps me sleep at night also when I just like have everything written down. I usually spend the mornings sewing because that takes up the most mental effort for me. Sewing and replying to DMs and checking emails, that takes up the most mental energy. After that, probably around 1:30, 2 o'clock p.m., I will get into the garden. I will literally just sit with the ducks and just like zone out. I'll just sit there. I'll feed them food. They'll climb on me. They'll probably poop on me. And I'm having the time of my life, like I'll just sit there. You want to climb on me? Sure. I will pet you. You know what I mean? I love it. I will stroll the garden, pick up a goose. I'll have a goose in my arm. I'll stroll the garden. I'll take a look at the things growing. I'll pick some weeds, and that's it. Usually around sunset, I'll take videos. Sunset's like the best time to take videos, and they always turn out so beautiful. So I'll take some videos. I'll bring my husband from his office and I'll be like, hey, can you take a video of me with this goose or something? Like people like to see geese for some reason. They're just so cute. And everybody's like really intrigued with the geese too, because everyone knows geese as like really angry animals. So it's always fun seeing like a goose being sweet and docile. Usually the end of the day, I spend strolling the garden with a goose, and that's it. Some days is a lot busier than others. I very rarely find time to like meal prep. I usually just make all of the food the night of, and that's really stressful. That's something that I want to do better next year, because sometimes we'll go to bed and it's like 10 o'clock because we've been in the garden all night. So that's something that I need to work on next year, and maybe just finding a little bit more balance without the sewing, without as intense of the sewing next year.
You mentioned earlier that you didn't think anybody else was gardening when you first got into gardening, and you started finding like YouTube or Instagram accounts or whatever that you followed and saw that people were also doing what you kind of had just stumbled into. That's kind of how I got into this too. I'm curious what those accounts were. Do you have any like memory of any specific accounts that gave you like inspiration, and or ones that you still follow today?
Oh my gosh. There were quite a few. I know one was yours because I was vegan at the time and I was interested in homesteading, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like nobody that is both of those things. So I found Jen, I found you. Oh, let me see here.
And Jen is Sunshine Farm Life, I think now, right?
Yeah. And oh my gosh, let me just like look real quick. I'm really bad with names. Hippie Billy Homestead.
Me too.
We love her. Northwoods.
She has beautiful content.
Yeah, she does. She does. I remember us like chatting one day, and she's like, my content is just not getting the views that it used to. I'm like, your content is gorgeous. Gorgeous. Yeah. And it gets more views than I've ever seen anyone get. Mountain Dog Farm. She follows my sewing page.
You have a lot of followers on
growers. No-till growers. Are you guys familiar with Farmer Jesse from No-Till Growers? He is my favorite. If you ever yes. If there's like, one of the best informational channels I have found to date is No-Till Growers. He has a podcast, and I think he's located in Kentucky. So he's super relevant to our climates and stuff like that. And he does farm tours. And he goes to people's farms and he asks them basically like, what are your practices? How do you implement no-till? And how's it going for you? So that you can like really learn firsthand and see what other people are doing. And he has a book. I bought it last year and it has been so incredibly helpful. That's the one thing. No-till growers love come to my farm. No,
I just followed them on Instagram from our podcast page.
They're so great. Yeah.
If you could give one piece of advice to someone looking to do what you do, whether that's online business or in-person sales, the farmer's market, or building a homestead from scratch, what would it be?
So I say that there's only so much that you can prepare for this. There's only so much you can read. There's only so much you can gain from other people's information. There's only so much you can learn from YouTube. Even if you are in your trade right now, like let's say you are already sewing for yourself, you're going to learn so much by starting a business with this hobby of yours. And you might love it as a hobby and hate it as a business. Or you might not really enjoy it as a hobby and you might love it as a business, which is really crazy to think about. Like, for example, with flowers, I personally could never have rows and rows and rows of flowers because it's actually quite a lot of work to deadhead every single day. I couldn't do that as a hobby. But for some reason, I love it as a business. I really, really enjoy it. And sewing, I love as a hobby. And I've spent a lot of time developing this hobby of mine. And I love sewing for other people. But on like a large scale business where I was taking 20 orders a week, I really wasn't loving it. So you just have to be very open-minded with the outcomes. So try it, go for it, just start wherever you're at whatever level, honestly. You don't even have to be super professional at anything. Sometimes people even love that. Like customers, for example, will just love you because you're trying to do something new, you know? Like for example, somebody online is like, I'm starting a soap business. I would be the first one to buy their soap just because, like, why not? They're trying something new. You know what I mean? But just be mindful that it might not turn out the way you want, but it might lead you to different areas that you're going to excel in, and you're just going to really love doing both, like the actual work itself and the business work. And just to be open about that, because coming to terms with not loving your hobby as a business is really challenging, because it's like I force myself sometimes to sew for other people, and it's like I don't love it as much as I used to. And I think it's just because the business aspect of it has really like stifled my creativity, and just feels like I gotta sit down and just do this, and that's difficult. So yeah, be patient with yourself, start wherever you're at, and just keep an open mind.
So where can we find you on social media, and what are the other ways we can support you?
Yeah, so all of my farm accounts are under Hillside Cottagestead, and my custom sewing business is Earthen Threads Co. And honestly, just like replying to things, like commenting on things is really fun. I just like talking with people. So that's really it. If you would love to buy a scrunchie or a ready-made apron or something like that, that is so cool. I absolutely love seeing people wear the stuff that I make. It's like the most surreal thing. It's like even more surreal than somebody coming and saying that they tried our duck eggs and loved it. It's like a whole other ballgame getting a photo from somebody in a dress that I made, and I'm just like, holy cow.
And if anyone is looking for the links to all the different social media, all the different websites to find these accounts, we will link those down below. And I want to say thank you so much, Lindsay, for being here. It's been really cool to talk to you and hear somebody with a slightly different perspective. And that's why we love having guests on here. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of She Said Homestead. We hope you enjoyed our chat. Before we say goodbye, we'd love to hear from you. Send your homesteading stories to us at shesaidhomestead@gmail.com. We can't wait to share them on the air. To stay connected, follow us on Instagram for updates and sneak peeks at what's coming up next.
If you like video podcasts, make sure you subscribe to the She Said Homestead YouTube channel too. We can't thank you enough for being part of the She Said Homestead community. Until next time, happy homesteading.